Alright, so before we get into today's video, I just want to mention that most of these builds I have had enough time to test and thoroughly min-max sort of what is the ultimate musket setups for Season 2. One of them is a bit more experimental and I haven't had the opportunity to try it for reasons that I'll discuss later on. This is the most min-max guide I've ever done. I've spent countless hours on builds, probably anywhere from 20 to 30 hours on the New World League server, thanks to Apple's, just creating absolutely min-maxed meta musket builds that I really hope you guys enjoy. There's a total of 5 different possible builds you could choose from this musket now, which is pretty exciting to have that freedom. And it even gets more specific. In those 5 builds, you then have specific perks for like rapier, because as you can see right now I have flurry on, and I've been testing flurry. It's an experimental perk, and I'm not going to actually put that in today's builds. I'm going to probably make a separate video on flurry itself. Yeah, I hope you enjoy, and yeah, musket is back in Season 2, guys. It feels incredible. Alright, so we're here on the New World League server now. We have crafted all these builds for you guys. We're going to run through them. Again, there's 5 different builds, 4 main builds that I've tested over 20 to 30 hours, and then this one-shot build, which is an experimental build that me and 470 years have cooked up. We haven't been able to test this one due to restrictions on the New World League server for muskets, but until then we are not able to fully test the one-shot build other than test it in duels and dummies. But with these other 4 builds, they are tried and true, tested, perfectly min-maxed, so you know exactly what you need, exactly what is the best possible set you can get with the most damage for your build. The way we're going to structure this is I'm going to do gear sets, then we're going to do a section covering the class setups. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first set we're going to cover is the Jeweler Musket Elemental Aversion set. This is something you're probably very familiar with from previous patches from Season 1 and pre-Season 1. This is what everybody was running. Now, first thing I want to mention is the rune glasses I have in, I've just been messing around with. When it comes to rune glasses, it is actually better to run a tier 5 gem in Musket that corresponds with your achievement, and it is best to run that rune glass that corresponds with that musket gem. In my armor right now it is incorrect, but I would be running abyssal emeralds or abyssal moonstones. When it comes to gem composition, it can be personal preference depending on how you play. This is what I like to use when I'm playing up close against melee. We still have 29% thrust resistance, but we have a little bit of slash in there as well. And then you're probably wondering, we don't really have any elemental resistances. That's because we are running this as the full elemental aversion set. Now we're going to quickly just go over the actual perks, and what I've decided is the best perks you probably will want to pick up for Season 2. There are a few new ones to mix into your elemental aversion sets. We have our empowering shooter stance, we have omnidirectional evade, we have the new perk here. This is one that is I've felt like has had use to me, especially with the new blocking, as I've noticed when I'm in duels, and this is a jeweler set, again I'd like to mention that, is that when you're dueling melee, especially in a 1v1 scenario, they will actually block, and this is actually a good thing for us because it gives us a little bit of empower, and if we time our shots correctly, we can actually just get bonus damage out of them blocking our shots. It might save them, but we get benefits out of that. So we have empowering breaker, we have Stroking Energy, again 15 stam, always good to have, why not? Crippling Powder on last. So yeah, that's the full elemental aversion perks. Rune glasses are preference. If you really struggle versus other ranged, go full thrust. If you like playing up close, if you like annoying melee, maybe some moonstones, maybe you want to go full onyx, is definitely a good option. Maybe you want to put a little bit of flame protection in there, maybe some rubies. I'm going to recommend moonstone and emeralds for a jeweler set with elemental aversion, so you have a bit of resistance to basically everything. Amulet is the tried and true. We've been using this since how long? It is still probably your best option. If you want to, you can go with flame protection over thrust protection. Those are really your 2 best amulet options. You could try going health, protection, and empowered, which is another option that I'm going to talk about later on, because I think that does have use in some specific builds such as double ranged. So now onto the ring. On PTR there's a little bit of an iffy thing where it's really hard to get our PvP craft mods, so I'm just going to actually put an image up of what the best rings are. This ring I have right here is not actually best in soul, of course it's just a 2 perker. Invigorated Punishment and the damage type of your gem and musket. So Amethyst, I would want to avoid damage, invigorated punishment ring. Now for the third perk, we want to go with either Hardy is definitely a good option since we're a jeweler build. If you're not a jeweler build, you can go for burning. If you're using a keenly jagged musket, you could go for keenly jagged. So there's definitely a fair few options in here for you to choose from. And again, there's a lot of preference here with musket in season 2, and it's pretty exciting. Now for the earring, I personally, this is my best go-to, is a refreshing toast and nimble purifying toast. I think nimble is incredibly underrated, and then obviously refreshing toast and purifying toast are two great perks. For our heart rune, we have the stalwart heart rune of stone form. Again, I've been using this for the longest time. I think it is just the best defensive, also technically aggressive heart rune. You know, there's always that backup, that pickup if you're in a bit of a tricky situation. Now your attributes are going to be 300 dex, 165 and 50 con as always. Now let's get on to another jeweler musket set, and this is what I would choose in arenas specifically. But for arenas, I recommend a 5-piece freedom set. Now the 5-piece freedom set, this means we have to drop all of our elemental aversion to make it work. Now onto the armor, again, these gems that I'm wearing are preference to me, and I like running onyx in arenas because I feel it's consistent. I get a little bit of resistance to everything. We're running freedom, resilient, crippling powder burn on our hats. Freedom, elemental aversion, resilient. We do have one elemental aversion. I actually forgot about that because we do have that as an extra perk slot. On our hands, we are running empowering breaker, resilient, freedom. Freedom, showing energy, resilient on our legs. And on our boots, we are running freedom, resilient, and empowering shooter's dance. Now, for my amulets here, I've gone for something a little bit different. I would recommend crafting your jewelry with emeralds. Again, I've just crafted it with moonstones on PTR, or New World League, sorry, because that is an option, and I can because of the excessive amount of materials we have. This is a stam recovery, flame protection, health, so we get a little bit of flame protection in this build. You're definitely going to have a bit of trouble versing fire mages, sorry, in arenas. The new arena map is fantastic, by the way. I have played my fair share of it. Again, I'll show an image up of the sort of best in slot invigorated punishment ring that I was talking about in the jeweler elemental aversion build. The earring is the same as the elemental aversion build, refreshing toast, nimble purifying toast. Again, I'm going to get into the weapons a bit later because the weapons are also preference to each build. I want to do armor, weapons. Now we're going to get into the double range build because this is a really viable option now. This is again definitely a build that you're going to want to sit back more with. It is definitely more of a sniper build. People might hate you for using this one, so just be careful. So we have elemental aversion, resil, empowering shooter stance, lasting rain of arrows. I've been testing this. I think it is a great pickup on your armor. On your gloves, we've got empowering breaker because sticky bombs into a clump, you are bound to proc that empowering breaker sometimes. On legs, we have empowering explosive arrow. Again, this is a great pickup, just more damage overall. You could have it on bow. We're going to get into that a bit later again when I come to the weapons section of the video. And on our feats, we have elemental aversion, resilient, and crippling powder burn. Standard jewelry over here. Stam recovery, flame protection, health. Again, you could do stam recovery, thrust protection, health. It is up to you. Same with the earring. Again, I'm going to chuck an image of the rings up. Third perk on those is kind of personal preference. Burning, bleed, hardy, up to you. And again, going to come to weapons later on. Now, instead of the mending stone form, you're going to want to go with brutal Harun of Cannon Blast. So, without further ado, I think we go on to the next build, which is the refreshing Evasion double range set. This is if you want to min-max cooldowns and CDR. If you want to pump out as much damage as fast as you can, this is the build you want to go with. If you're feeling confident that you don't need the elemental aversion that we had in the elemental aversion double range set, go with a refreshing evasion or refreshing set. Personally, I prefer refreshing evasion. It feels like I have more control over my CDR. On our hat, we have the Refreshing Evasion, Resilient, Empowering Shooter Stance. Again, remember, these are just placeholder rune glass gems. When it comes to rune glass gems, I recommend the elemental rune glass of your musket attunement type and tier 5 gem type in your musket. Hats, Refreshing Evasion, Resilient, lasting range of arrows on our chest. Again, those are a great pickup. Empowering Breaker, Refreshing Evasion hands, Refreshing Evasion, Explosive, Empowering arrow legs, Refreshing Evasion, Crippling Powder Burn feet. This is a little bit different. I've decided to min-max CDR here. Here, I've dropped stam recovery for Refreshing Evasion. You could keep stam recovery, or if you're using, again, the new option, I'm going to bring this up here because this is the option you would use if you're in a double range scenario. I think I have it. So yeah, so empowered health and thrust protection is also another option in double ranged. There's so many empowers in musket and bow that empowered is a really great pickup if that suits your playstyle. Again, the mortal empowerment, integrated punishment combos that we're talking about before, going to chuck those up on the screen now. The earring, Refreshing Evasion, Refreshing Toast, and Nimble. I believe I have dropped Purifying Toast here for another CDR perk. Again, since we're playing so far back, we're trying to min-max our CDR with this build. It is definitely a confidence build because we're dropping all of our elemental aversion, we're dropping Purifying Toast, we're dropping stam recovery, also we can min-max our CDR. And again, that comes with the ring. You could also go Mortal Empowerment, Elemental Damage, Refreshing Evasion, and you could have an 8-piece CDR set. Now, we've covered the 4 main builds that I have been testing. Now I want to talk about something a bit more experimental. This is the one-shot build. I'm going to load powder in. I'm going to go into shooter stance. I'm going to shoot any target 4 times to get our empowering shooter stance stacks. I'm going to load stopping power for our last shot, and I'm going to hit our healer. Presumably we're going to target a healer with our last shooter stance shot. This is due to the combination of power shot with empowering shooter stance stacks of being allowed to use our special shots in shooter stance. We can pull off some nutty combos and nutty damage. So I can shoot any target 4 times to get my power stacks, transfer to a healer for that last stopping power, for that last power shot, empowering shooter stance shot. Now again, taking into account about a thrust protection and resilience. I have tested this in duels on players. Again, I haven't been able to test this in Outpost Rush, which would be the ideal testing scenario. In duels though, we were knocking healers down, mages down, people with 300 con down to about half health, roughly, on average, with the different resistances. People were getting hit straight down to half health, sometimes even a third HP. But if you ever catch a 50 con healer, they're gonna get lit up. Weapon perks are, of course, subject to change a lot. There's a total of 6 different muskets that all have their respective use. A couple of them are used for certain builds, which I'm going to talk about, but a lot of these muskets here you can interchange and use with any of these builds or armor sets that I've showed to you. Some of them are familiar muskets that you're used to seeing. Over here we have the Attunement Accuracy Enchanted musket. This is a great option. If you find yourself sniping a lot, you might find yourself preferring this musket. Again, accuracy is very hit or miss. Some people like it, some people don't. I would recommend this musket for all of the 4 builds apart from the one-shot build. The next musket is a Vicious Abyssal Attunement Accuracy. I would recommend this musket for the one-shot build only. Now, the reason why, this is a very unique and specific musket. Me and 470 have min-maxed to the point where we figured out that, well, Enchanted doesn't proc in shooter stance because shooter stance is an ability. The one-shot combo that I showed you guys just before, it's all based in shooter stance. Enchanted isn't going to help us. And then again, we still have Attunement, that's just plus 14% damage as always. Your third perk option is either Keen or Accuracy. This musket, again, it is very specific. It basically has this one use and that's about it. The one-shot build and that's about it. The good thing is, this is a very easy roll. You lock in Attunement Accuracy or you lock in Attunement and Keen. I believe Vicious has a 16% chance of proccing. It's a very easy to roll musket. That is the best thing about this build. Now, this is a familiar musket that we are all pretty familiar with these days. Is Attunement, Keenly Jagged, Enchanted. This is still your best musket for the Duelist set. This is probably still your best musket for double ranged. It is just all around still probably the top musket. The next musket is a more recent one that I also seem to love. This is what I use on my second character, which I believe I transferred to Miramar recently because I want to practice NA for the New World League. This is Attunement Enchanted Keenly Empowered. This is another great option. that goes alongside your jeweler and double range sets very well. And again, it comes down to personal preference. Do you prefer a dot build with keenly jagged, or do you prefer just more instant damage with keenly empowered? This is a very underrated musket. Not many people talk about it. Achievement Vorpal Enchanted. People that give Vorpal shit, I think especially with Bloom, it is definitely not the greatest. But I also think if you know what you're doing, if you love playing point blank as a jeweler, this musket can provide a lot of value if you know what you're doing. Especially in arenas, in the right hands is better than both keenly jagged and keenly empowered, but it is not near as consistent. Vicious Attunement Keenly Empowered is your best option for bow still, if you're playing double ranged. Now, this one is a very personal preference. I've seen so many different rapiers out there. Everybody thinks this is the best rapier, that's the best rapier. I think Attunement Rogue and Keenly Empowered is the best DPS rapier, in my opinion. Trenchant Strikes, I believe it is, over Rogue, go for it. If you prefer Trenchant Crits over Rogue, go for it. It is honestly up to you. I think this is my favorite rapier. It is also a very hard roll and very expensive roll to get. Without further ado, I think we're finally ready to get into the actual ability trees of the weapons. Now on to the musket trees. This is the one-shot build, and that is because everything here can be used inside the shooter stance burst. There's very specific perks I've dropped. I've dropped all of the mobility perks because we do not need them. The one-shot build, you're playing like a rat. I hate to admit it, the one-shot build is built for playing like a sniper. It is the entire point of the build. I have picked the tree or respec to the tree that I would recommend for dueling. This build goes absolutely crazy in arenas and just dueling as well, or being a duelist. Again, all of our special shots are instant reload now. Stopping power is instant fire, so you can get a triple shot burst off. I'm going to quickly show that. It's a little bit hard on my ping, but it is still very doable. So, first shot load. Boom, shoot, boom, shoot. Boom. That is 3 shots off in a very short span of time. That is the triple shot jeweler setup that I absolutely freaking love. Now, what is the best double ranged or sniper based build? This is what I recommend for double ranged, or if you prefer playing back. Again, just keep in mind, playing these kinds of builds in OPR, people will not like. Dropping our power shot and stopping power from the jeweler build, and swapping that out for sticky bomb and shooter stance. We're dropping the 2 mobility perks. Since you're going to preferably be playing away like a rat, you're always going to have a bit of lead time to escape anyway, so you shouldn't need them. You're picking up the 2 CDR perks, both marksman and cold shots. First tier sticky bomb is all you need for that clump damage for our double range builds. Sticky bomb still does, this build does work up close again, by the way, but again I think the jeweler build does a much finer job at being a close range build, and these are really the 3 main builds for musket. This is the rapier tree that I would recommend for the most consistency. It is the flourish and finish grace tree. That is the best rapier tree. Now there's the full grace tree minus desperation and minus swiftness, plus Ingarde, plus refreshing strikes, if you prefer repost, that is. Now there's really just one more build to get into, and that is the perk tree for double range. There's really only one thing I'd recommend, one build I'd now recommend for this. After the recent poison buff, I think poison has a lot of utility now. Been buffed from a 12% tick to a 24% tick, which is a massive increase, and I've seen poison ticks up to 500, 600. So again, full poison, full range, full explosive, maxing out our damage, picking up most of the damage perks. Battle precision and mark are both crucial. That is pretty much the entire guide for this thing. If I forget to mention anything, then I'm going to make sure I add that text on screen when it matters. That is basically the entire ultimate guide. Next few days I plan to get the Flurry video out, testing Flurry as the next wave for rapier players. This is basically everything you need to know for Season 2, hopefully Season 3 as well, because I don't think we're getting a musket rework until probably Season 5. I'll see you guys in the next video.